Well, good morning, everyone. So the way I understand it, we're the last thing between you and lunch. No pressure, no pressure. So we're excited to be here with you today. I know if you were just in Amir's session, you had some really good thought-provoking insights to take away. And I told Amir, that's probably the third or fourth time I've heard Amir speak. And every time I hear him speak, I walk away with something that I'm like, that one thing that he talked about on the Post-it note. So Mike and I are excited to be here with you and talking about blue-collar leadership. Now, you need to know a couple of things before we get started. Number one, we're married. So if he picks on me, it's okay.
And if she picks on me, I'm used to it. And it won't take long, just watch.
I don't pick on you.
Okay, I'm going to let you guys judge.
Now, the second thing you need to know is that if I don't talk first, I'm not going to get to talk. Oh. So
y'all feel that? I kind of felt that a little bit. But I am used to it.
I have to get all my words in on the front end. Did you want to say like one thing before we get started?
You going to let me say one thing?
One? Can you keep it to one?
All right, one thing for these fine folks. And one thing I always like to say anywhere in the country, and we live in Atlanta, and I lived in Alabama for a long time, and I always like people to know that I'm bilingual, and not to impress you, but to warn you. I speak English and country, sometime at the same time. We were actually had the privilege of speaking Les Brown, if you've heard of Les Brown. He invited us to speak in 2014 at an event he was doing in L.A., and I told those folks that, and they were first probably thinking I speak Spanish and English, but when I told them, no, not that, English and country. And I said, I'm from the other L.A., Lower Alabama. They didn't know what that meant, but I knew, right?
That wasn't too bad.
That wasn't too bad. I did good today.
So we're going to be talking about leadership and engaging your front line and engagement of the workforce. But before we do all that, I got a question. Who likes donuts? Krispy Kreme donuts? Okay, that's a good point, because around here we have a lot of Dunkin' Donuts. There's like a Dunkin' Donuts on every corner up here. Well, where we're from in Atlanta, we have a lot more Krispy Kreme donuts, and I love Krispy Kreme donuts too. One of our mentors is a leadership author and speaker named John Maxwell, and John loves Krispy Kreme donuts too. In fact, John used to be a pastor for 20-something years, and he tells the story. He said, you know what? If I'm driving past Krispy Kreme, and you guys, if you haven't been to Krispy Kreme, you need to know that they have this giant neon red sign that they turn on, and it says hot, fresh donuts. So I see some of you nodding, so you've been there. You know that when the sign's on, when the light's on, they've got the hot, fresh donuts. Well, John loves to tell the story. He says, you know what? If I'm driving past Krispy Kreme and the light's on, it's God's will. It's God's will. I should stop and get a donut. And he says, sometimes I have to pull in the parking lot and wait for 30 minutes for God's will to be revealed. Well, one day, he's driving past Krispy Kreme, and the light's not on, but he's like, you know what, today it's Thursday, and I got this conference thing to go to, and I just need a donut. So he pulls into the parking lot, and he walks into the store. Now, to his surprise, the hot donuts are rolling off the line in the back. And he tells the lady at the counter, he says, well, ma'am, you forgot to turn your sign on. Your hot donut sign's not on. He's like, here, let me go plug it in for you, because we got to tell the world there's hot donuts now. And the lady says, don't turn that light on. And he says, well, why not? She said, you know what I figured out pretty soon after I started to work here is if I turn that light on, people come in here to buy donuts. And then I get busy. And I have to work harder. And I have to do more. And the line backs out. And people want their donuts, and they want them now. And I just figured out it's easier if I don't turn that light on. And you think the owners of that store knew the light wasn't on? No, they're not selling donuts. But as leaders, sometimes that's one of the biggest challenges, is helping turn the light on. An even greater challenge is turning our own light on. Right? Because sometimes it's easier in life if we just don't turn the light on. Sometimes turning the light on means doing something more. Sometimes it means taking time away from your schedule to come to a conference or an event like this. Sometimes it means reading a book when you don't like to read, or maybe it's going back to school. And sometimes it's easier if we don't turn the light on. And once we turn our light on, sometimes our greatest challenge is helping someone else turn the light on and keep it on.
So we really enjoy following Amir because, especially today, he set up everything that we want to talk about, especially the stuff that I want to talk about. He sets it up just perfectly. And a lot of times, probably when you're sitting in here, and a lot of people, when they hear Amir speak, and rightfully so, they're thinking about the leaders, the formal leaders in an organization, all that stuff that Amir was talking about. And I agree with that 100%. And we speak to big, large organizations, and we speak to white-collar executives. And one time we were in Orlando speaking to at an event. They brought in 80 of the top leaders of a $3 billion organization from 40 different countries around the world. And we had the privilege of doing a half-day workshop for those folks. And what was interesting was all of those folks in the room were PhDs. And you got blue-collar country Mac talking to them, right? So, but I take that same message, where my real passion is at and where my heart's at is with the people on the front line, entry level, in the blue-collar industries. So Ria and I have written 22 books, and 4 of my books are actually for the blue-collar industry specifically. And they have something to do with that in the title. But like Amir said, he said it a different way, but this quote right here, and I just want to read it, make sure we get it. We have been paying people for their hands for years when they would have given us their heads and hearts for free if we had just known how to ask. And if you don't know Bob Chapman, Barry Waymiller, that guy is like my personal standard for what this stuff that we're talking about. I say me and Ria and Amir, the stuff we're talking about, Bob Chapman does it at the CEO level like I've seen no one do it. Until I met Bob, Truett Cathy was my model. Thing about Truett is Truett has been, like, as far as I can tell, and they were a client of ours for 3 years, as far as I can tell, Truett's been the man, character-wise, his whole life. Bob wasn't. Sounds like from what I've learned about Bob, and I'm not a CEO, but Bob was a lot like me for a while, an idiot. That's what I used to be. If you guys think of...
You weren't that bad. I married you.
Well, I was 30 by the time Ria met me. I had gotten better. Y'all know what I mean? So when we talk to people, though, and I heard this from a client, a business owner in Charlotte, and he said, a lot of stuff you say, Mac, he said, what you're saying, I tell my team all the time, we don't have to be sick to get better. You don't have to be sick to get better. And I picked that up and I researched it. I want to know who actually said it. And there's actually a book by Michael Josephson titled, You Don't Have to Be Sick to Get Better. So when we go into organizations, that's the message that we want to convey, because we do want you to look in the mirror, you at your level, but also today is talking about helping you do what we're trying to do for you. How do we do that for everyone? In Amir's session, he's really talking about leading yourself well. He's talking about leading others. What if we can get the guy on the forklift to have that same mindset? Would it be easier to lead that person? Yeah. And I'm here to tell you today, those folks are hungry. And I know, because I was one of them. First 10 years of my career, I was a frontline, entry-level CNC machine operator. Not just CNC, bandsaws, lathes, mills, drills, gear shapers. And I was an idiot. And I said I'd never go back to school once I graduated high school. You guys heard 007? I've never actually watched the movie, but I've seen enough previews to know he's cool, right? 007. So in high school, that was my nickname, 007. Not because I was cool like James Bond. That was my GPA. It was a little better than that, but just to give you that insight, it feels pretty cool to be standing on the campus of Yale University, right? I had to look it up and see what state it was in. I never expected to be here, much less to be speaking here. But those people, and I say that not to toot my horn, but those people have potential. If you'd have saw me back in my first 10 years of my career, you'd thought this guy, where he's going to end up is prison. That's what you would have thought about me. I was probably the hardest, most productive worker out there, because that was how I showed that I was somebody and it mattered. I did a good job. but I blamed everybody else for not doing a good job. Y'all have seen those folks, right? They'll come find you and tell you how everybody else is not doing a good job, but look at me. I was that guy. So I've had a lot of personal transformation. But I tell you one thing to tell you right quick about Bob Chapman. And he's got some TEDx talks and some videos, he podcasts. He says this about his people. What's some standard metrics that we use in manufacturing? Quality. Throughput. Downtime. Lots of safety, quality, delivery, cost, all this stuff. That's normal, right? And I can tell you all you need to know about Bob as a CEO right here. One of the metrics in their company is the divorce rate among their employees. Amir touched on that was one of his values when he was leading as a plant manager. That tells you who that man is. He wants to put that responsibility on his shoulders, that we're going to lead and develop our people in a way that reduces the divorce rate. Y'all know it. Our country needs some help. Y'all know that. Our world needs some help. Guess who's got to help it? We do. And I'm telling you, these folks on the front lines in the entry-level workforce, they're hungry for this stuff. I spent the first 20 years of my career in multi-billion-dollar global organizations, and when I resigned in 2008 to start my own lean manufacturing consulting business, I was a lean manager and a lean coordinator reporting to the plant manager and facilitating Kaizen events. And I actually, as a consultant and in-house, I led over 11,000 hours of Kaizen events. That's where I really learned to lead, was leading people who didn't want to change, who were not a team, to change physically during that week and become a team during that week. But in those 20 years, not one company ever spent one penny or 1 minute teaching me this type of stuff, ever. Much less when I was down on the front lines, but even as I worked my way up through management ranks, never did we do this. And what's cool is that company I resigned from in 2008, 10 years ago, next Tuesday we're going to be speaking to all of their plant managers and all their directors from North America. And they want us to come in and talk about what great leadership looks like in other organizations. So they've been in business since 1915, but maybe if I can leverage my influence, maybe they'll go down this path. It's not an easy path, but it's what our country needs. We need it at home. We need it at work. We need it at school. We need it at church. Wherever people are at, someone with the resources and a heart to do it has got to do it. We've got to fix this thing that's wrong with our world. I'm about to get wound up, Ria. You better go. I get excited about this stuff.
You see why I have to talk first, though. But why is all this important? I mean, sure, we know that we need to change the world and we need to change our organization and starting with ourselves, but why else is it important? You know, there are really two types of competition in industry. Now, the first one is the one that comes to mind that we think about all of the time. That's competition for our customers or our clients, right? We spend a lot of our time and resources trying to get better than the competition, whatever that looks like for us. But there's another type of competition that we don't always focus on, and yet we should be. Competition for our workforce. Right? Because it doesn't necessarily mean that the employees will leave and go to your competitors in the industry. You're not just competing against your competitors in the industry for your clients, you're also competing for your employees. But you're also competing against other industries. How many of you have changed careers between industries from time to time? Almost all of you. Right? Our competitive advantage is the ability to engage the workforce and develop the workforce. Because here's the thing. If we as a company are investing in you as an employee, if we're helping your marriage get better, if we're helping you manage your finances better, if we're developing you personally and professionally, you're like, you couldn't pay me 50 cents an hour to leave and go to the company across town that doesn't do that. If you care about me as an individual so much that you care whether I get divorced, it's got to be a pretty good company to steal me away from that. Now, it does happen. People do leave, and that's part of life. But our competitive advantage is our ability to develop and engage the workforce.
So have you thought about it like that before? Everybody thinks about the competition for the customers. Whenever we go somewhere and I say, who's your competition? Guess who they talk about? The people competing for the customers. They never say a different type of industry with a different type of product right around the corner. Nobody ever says that. We want to raise their awareness because today, you hear this, I hear it a lot, you hear it. If you work someplace, you hear it from maybe from internally, but definitely you hear it externally. You ever hear people say, or have you ever worked in an organization where people say, we just can't find any good people? That's pretty common. Or now, the other thing you hear a lot is, well, the unemployment rate's so low right now, we just can't find anybody. We're struggling with resources, getting folks in, team members. Y'all hear that? That one's all over the news today. Both of those things, I call this leadership truth. And I don't know you, I ain't here to offend you, but I am here to raise your awareness about the root cause of both of those things. It's who we are. It's who our organization is. Those things are excuses. Those things are excuses that low-impact leaders use because they're not willing to go do the work. Much of the stuff Amir was talking about. And the reason I tell you that, the best companies, they could go to the middle of nowhere, Arizona today, the best companies in the world. They could go where there's not even a population. They could create a city just by going there. And when they announced we're going to build in nowhere, Arizona, guess what they're going to start getting immediately? Applications. The best companies, Chick-fil-A, like I said, was a client of ours. When they hire someone to stand at the register and take your order at Chick-fil-A, this specific store we supported for 3 years, they have 250 applications for that entry-level position. And you never hear them say, we can't find any good people. But you can go to the other fast food restaurants that surround them, and we've been to some of them, and guess what they tell us all the time? We can't find good people. But this one store across the street, there are 250 people, and they get to select. They go through 3 interviews to get that frontline entry-level job. The owner, the store manager, and guess who else? The team they're going to work with. When that team's got involvement in the process, you think they got ownership in helping this person, if it especially is the person that they wanted to select? Versus, we want this person, but then I'm the boss, so I go get this person. A lot of times, see, high-impact leadership is about slowing down to go faster. And what we talk about and what we speak about, again, we talk about principles. We share the same principles with 8th graders that we share with CEOs and business owners and everybody in between, because these principles apply to everyone. And in the BlueCollar Leadership series that we're talking about here to talk to you about today, there's nothing like that out there today. It's kind of sad. I don't know if you've heard of John Wiley Publishing. They called me on Tuesday, I think. They're interested in my BlueCollar Leadership book, Leading from the Front Lines. It's written specifically for entry-level people. And they're interested in publishing it worldwide. And the guy said, I can't believe there's not a book out there by this title already. It's kind of sad. I said, I'm not special. When you look up BlueCollar Leadership on Google, the first 3 pages, about 30 entries, is something about me. Not because I'm special. It's because I'm talking about the blue-collar workforce, has been overlooked, underappreciated, and underdeveloped basically forever. There's a few organizations that are doing it, but we're missing the piece of the pie. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more. But you can see it's a huge competitive advantage. And we were talking about a minute ago the 2 types of competition. And Amir touched on it. We talk about it. Word of mouth. Is that a big deal? You ever been somewhere your children are at or some type of social event and people ask you about your job? Pretty common. That's a lot of times that's the first question someone will ask you. Where you work? What's it like there? As soon as you open your mouth, guess what you're giving for that organization? Word of mouth advertisement. And see, a lot of leaders, they overlook it. They don't understand the value of it. They don't understand how important it is for what everybody says in our organization. If you come to work in my organization and all you're here for is for me to produce product and produce profit, versus You come to work for Ria over here, and she's going to do product and profit as well, but she's going to care about you and grow and develop you while you're there. Chick-fil-A don't say they're in the chicken business. Guess what they say? Guess what business they say they're in? People business. And because they're in the people business, they actually produce some really good chicken and some really good service. And the place is clean and they're nice. I remember the first time I walked up in Auburn, Alabama to a store and it was raining. And there's like 3 Chick-fil-A employees out there, team members, with umbrellas, taking people to their car and from their car. Reckon what that done to their productivity while they were doing that? Probably went down, right? What do you think it does to their business? And what do they do on Sundays? They challenge you. Everybody who wants to come eat our stuff on Sunday, we're going to be rude to our customers. We're going to close. We're going to tell you, go somewhere else Sundays. You come to our store Monday through Saturday. But they're telling you, they're forcing you to go somewhere else on Sunday. And they believe they're good enough, you're going to come back Monday through Saturday.
And we do.
And they're about $8 billion today. And they're constantly growing.
So, but a question that we often hear is, well, what happens if we invest in our workforce? What happens if we invest in our associates? What if we train them and they leave? What's worse than that? What if we don't train them and they stay?
Has everybody heard that before? It's pretty common stuff, right? But see, a high-impact leader is going to train them where they leave or not. That's why Chick-fil-A is in the people business. A lot of young folks work there. They know those people are leaving. Guess what they want to do? They want to help them leave. They see a bigger picture out there. It's that world we're talking about that's in such sad shape. It's not just about profit. See, a low-impact leaders say, we're in business to make a profit. You ask them, why are you in business? To make a profit. That's the same exact thing as saying, why do we live as humans? To eat. I think we can do more than just eat during our life. What you think? You think it's necessary for us to eat, though, to exist? Absolutely. These businesses have to make a profit. But that shouldn't be the reason they're there. That shouldn't be the thing that's spread around. We're just here to make money and here to make a profit. That shouldn't be what people feel when they come to work.
Right, but a lot of times, training and investing in our workforce is turning the light on, right? What's one of the first things that gets cut when your budgets start getting down? And training and development. And it's our competitive advantage, and it's the first thing that we cut so much of the time. So, and Amir touched on this, it's not just the competency that we can help develop our workforce in. Research shows us that statistically, who we are, our character, determines 87% of our success, results, and influence. 87%, right? How we do what we do. Competency determines 13%. That's the knowledge, the skills, the abilities. You can think of it like this. You may not care about the research, but I guarantee you've probably seen this in your career. We get hired for what we know. The resume, the job skills, the knowledge or the degrees. We get hired for what we know. We get fired for who we are.
Can you validate that? Have you seen it? May not have been you, could have been you, but hopefully it wasn't you.
We won't ask that.
But you've seen it. You see it all the time, right? It even happens in your personal life. You meet somebody, you like them because of who you think they are. And then the next day or the next week or the next month, next year, you find out who they really are, and that relationship ends. These principles apply just as much at home as they do at work. And that's one thing when we're speaking in organizations, we talk about the personal side just as much as the professional side, because we want people to buy into the principles. A low-impact leader don't want us to come in and tell personal stories. They want us to come in and talk about the business side, the professional side. But the people buy into what's in it for them, right? Everybody does that. But when you start teaching them and telling them stories how you can improve your marriage or improve your relationship with your children, and they hear my stories. This ain't what we're here today, but both of us have some pretty powerful personal stories about how we've used these principles in our personal life, and we share them a lot. We may share a few today, but that principle right there is powerful. Do most organizations have competency problems or people problems? And where do you think the people side really is at up there? But where do most organizations invest their time, money, and resources? And they do that because they're required to do it. They have to do it to function as a business, right? You don't have to do the character stuff. Most organizations, especially blue-collar organizations, they don't do any of that stuff. And there's a bunch of hard-nosed blue-collar guys out there. There's some ladies out there, but there's a lot of blue-collar guys. They don't like the soft stuff. But I agree with Amir 100%. There ain't nothing soft about it. Ria and I are going to write a book called The Hard Thing About Soft Skills. The reason it's hard is because it's about your character. There's nothing hard about it. And you can be as hard as you need to be while you're being soft. High character doesn't mean you're always soft, you're always nice. You ever had somebody tell you when you screwed up, did something really dumb? You ever had somebody, they come to you and they talk to you in a way that it makes you feel like you're an idiot? And you know without a doubt in your mind they're blaming you because you can feel it? Y'all have had that happen? They were being hard on you. But I bet you've also had someone come up to you, put their hand around you. You may have still did the same crazy, goofy thing. In my word, talking about me, stupid. I did a lot of stupid things early on. But somebody put their hand on my shoulder, talked to me. They were hard on me. But there was no doubt their intent was to help me, not to blame me. You ever had that happen? That's what I'm talking about. You can still be as hard as you need to be. It's how you're being while you're being hard. Selfish is another way to talk about that. Everybody on this planet is selfish. They better be or they won't be alive very long. Right? A lot of people don't like that word, selfish. They think, oh, that's wrong. No, we shouldn't be selfish. You better be selfish. The key is how are you being while you're being selfish? Is your intent to help others while you're helping yourself? That's all being selfish really means is I'm helping me. Can I help me in a way that tells everybody else I'm just worried about me? Absolutely. Can I help me in a way that says to everybody else I'm worried about me, but I'm also worried about you? I want to help you. That's what this is all about, is having that paradigm shift so that we can be highly effective, high-impact leaders.
So, when we think about it, how we do what we do makes a difference. I mean, you can think of it from a personal level, right? How do you feel about your doctor? I mean, you care that he's got competency. Absolutely. You want him to have graduated medical school, right? But how he makes you feel in that, 120 seconds he's in the exam room makes all the difference. Sometimes it's not even him. Sometimes it's his nurse or his front desk receptionist that you're like, I don't like the way they treated me. I'm not going back. I've had that experience. You go somewhere the first time, new patient, and just the experience, even before you get in to see the doctor, you're like, I'll find somebody else. Right? How we do what we do makes a difference. Well, so we know why it's important, and we all want to. You all, a lot of the things that we're talking about today, you all know it, right? These principles aren't new, but how do we do it, right? The greatest gap in the world is between what we know and what we actually do. So how do we do it?
Before you go past that. So Ria and I had the privilege of being in Guatemala with John Maxwell in 2013 as part of the cultural transformation of Guatemala. And that's actually where we learned the principle that's in the little slide right there. It was the foundational principle that we taught them. 87% of your results, your influence, come from character, 13% from competency. And we trained over 20,000 Guatemalan leaders. We had the privilege of being at the presidential palace with the president of Guatemala and John and the 150 of us that were down there. But the whole point was transformation begins with me. And everything we're talking to you about, most of this session is helping you understand the why behind why do we need to grow and develop our people. Because just like Amir, we want you to do something when you leave. We don't want you to just let everything remain the same. Because again, our world needs us to be different because we're responsible. And we have to get people to say, you're responsible for making the world a better place. Because imagine if every single person did that today, literally, instantly, the world would be a better place. And it's not a bunch of hocus pocus kind of stuff. It would happen if we actually did it. But we have to do it, but we tend to want other people to do it. So there was a leader down there, and we went through a session, and he was a CEO in a business group. He said, Mac, I understand what you're saying. He said, but we were talking about weaknesses and that kind of stuff, and he said, you're telling me you want me to go tell my team my weaknesses? He said, wouldn't that make it harder for me to lead them? I said, well, because we were wanting them to get involved with the development, not just bring somebody in and do it to them. We want them to get engaged with them, so they're just a part of the team like everyone else. And I said, well, sir, if you believe telling your team your weaknesses will make it harder for you to lead because they don't already know your weaknesses, you have a false assumption. He said, what do you mean I have a false assumption? And I asked them in that room today, and I'll ask you so that you can see it the same way they felt it. I said, you assume that they don't already know your weakness. And I asked that room like I'll ask you. Probably every leader you've ever reported to in your career, without any preparation, you could start writing a list right now of their weakness. Right? Guess what someone else can do if they report to you? They can do the same exact thing, and that's what I told them. I said, what they don't know today is, do you care? Do you know, first of all, do you know you have that weakness? Because when you tell them, when you're engaged in the discussions and you tell them, now they know you know. Before, they don't know if you know. Everybody else knows, but they don't know if you know. And I said, now the most important part is they want to find out, do you care? See, we all have a blind spot. Everybody in this room, everybody outside that door, we all have a blind spot, and it's usually in the exact same place. It's right here between us and the mirror. I said, so when you tell them about your weakness, you're going to have an opportunity to build trust by telling them that, and then now you got to keep the commitment by either getting better or not getting better. Does that make sense? So that's one of the things we talk about is how you literally change the culture. Sometimes business owners or leaders will call and they'll say, Mac, we want to change the culture in our company. Can you help? And the story I'm telling you now is about a top level guy. And I said, yeah, I can help. Tell me what it means to you. And they'll tell me some stuff. And I said, let me tell you what it means to me. Are you willing to change the values you hold so dearly today, Mr. Leader? Are you willing to change your values? Because if you don't change your values, the culture is not going to change. Because that culture is exactly what your values have created it to be. You either allow it to happen, make it happen, or prevent it from happening. All these things. Because I said, can I change your values? What do you think he tells me? No, I can't change anybody's values. When you go into an organization and you want to change the culture, when that leader wants to change the culture, what they're really saying is, I want to change everyone's values. Because our culture today is, guess what? Is a cumulative set of all of our values put together. Does that make sense? So when we say we want to change the culture, we're saying, as a leader, I got to know I'm saying this. I've got to inspire you from within to follow me. As I change my values, I want you to change your values. But I can't do that if I'm saying I'm not changing mine. I just wish y'all would be better. That don't make a lot of sense when you're sitting here thinking about it, right? That's what a lot of leaders do. They bring folks in, but the leaders don't get involved. They don't change. Or the people who are doing leadership development, training and development within an organization, it's just a job. Someone just doing a job doesn't motivate and inspire people very good. You ever notice? But if someone just doing a job does accidentally, if you want to call it that, motivate and inspire someone, this person really became inspired from within, and probably these folks are going to leave the organization. You ever seen that? You ever done some training and development, and the folks really get gung-ho? We train them and they leave? We ask that question, right? What happens if we train them and they leave? If we're growing with them, it's okay because we're going to fill in other people who can just keep moving us forward. But if we're just dumping some stuff in here and we're not really engaged in true change and transformation, we're probably going to run off our best people. Not on purpose. I say run them off. We're going to grow them. And because we're not doing it as leaders, the best folks are going to leave. John Maxwell calls it the law of the lid. the organization can't grow any higher than the lid. Does that make sense?
Now, I will tell you, this stuff says easy and does hard. It's kind of like New Year's resolutions. So, I mean, Mac and I live and breathe leadership. This is what we do all the time, and we do it together. So, and you know, when you live and work with your spouse, you got to go way beyond just loving that person. You actually have to like them.
Y'all know there's a difference. There's a lot of people, y'all know it. They go home every night, tell somebody they love them, and they don't even like that person. And they've been doing it for years. Y'all know people like that. So what she's saying is the truth.
So a few weeks ago, Mac and I were getting ready to speak, and we were speaking for a local company. So it was a local speaking engagement. And in the morning, I have to plan my schedule pretty far in advance, a couple months in advance, because one of my hobbies is teaching group fitness, and I really love to do that and inspire people physically as well as in leadership realm. So, but to do that and manage our travel schedule, I have to plan, seriously 8 weeks out in advance to manage clients and classes and all of that. So we were getting ready the night before to drive up to a local speaking engagement. And local for us is anywhere we could sleep in our own bed that night. So the night before we leave, I'm packing, getting ready to go. And I said, well, what time do you want to leave in the morning? And he said, well, let's leave at 6:30. And I'm like, ooh, we got a problem, because I'm teaching a class tomorrow morning at 6:30, because this was a local speaking engagement. I didn't know we were going to have to leave 3 hours early. And so I walk in there, I said, well, how did we fail to miss that?
Y'all feel that?
Like, how did you fail to manage my schedule better? I don't know. How did we miss that?
I was trying to figure out, what did I have to do with any of this? As I was proactively just being quiet. Used to, I wasn't the quiet guy when stuff would irritate me. I was the loud, ugly guy. But like I said, I'm better now, right? It's one reason I have such a passion for helping grow and develop the blue-collar workforce. They're very reactive, a lot of us. I still say us, even though I'm not that guy. And if you see me in this suit like you do today, this is a disguise. Y'all with me? It's like Halloween when I put this thing on. This is not who I am. But I have to wear this sometime. If I'm going to represent ATD at Yale, guess what I'm going to wear? I'm going to wear a suit. But I don't want to wear it. Most of the time I wear jeans and roll up my sleeves with a blue-collar shirt logo on, no matter where I'm speaking. That makes sense?
My point here being that it is hard to do, right? It says easy and it does hard. And we will make mistakes, and that's okay. It's just simply about being intentional about improving. So how do we do it? According to a study done by Harris Interactive, 79% of respondents estimate they would be 40% more productive if they're working for a high-impact leader, if they're working for someone who cares about them on a personal level. Now think about this. 40%, that's almost half another employee. 40% difference in productivity. You can probably validate this. If you've reported to someone in your career that you don't feel like they care about you, you're like, they don't have a relationship with me, they don't even know my spouse's name, they don't even know if I have kids, they have zero empathy for my job and what I do, right? This is the person that you're like, they don't care about me, I don't care about them. I'm going to do my 8 and hit the gate. Or you're like, quitting time is at 5 o'clock, so I'm going to go pee at 4:55 because I'd much rather pee on company time.
Thank you.
I'd much rather take that time than my time, my personal time. So this is the leader that we won't do any more than we absolutely have to do. We follow that person because we get a paycheck. And so we do what we have to do. The difference in productivity between that and following a leader who does care about us, who does have a relationship with us. We follow that leader because we want to. We'll come in early. We'll stay late. We'll have overtime even without being asked or even paid for it, and a lot of times. We'll go that extra inch or that extra mile. That's that 40%. You can't pay somebody more and get that extra 40%. Right? This is where the gap in quality a lot of times comes in. Mac and I bought a chair for my office a few weeks ago. And it was a nice name brand chair, and I got it on sale. And so I got it home. I was so excited about it. And he put it together for me and rolled it up to my desk. And on the very back is the emblem of the company, the name of the company, and the logo.
It was about like this.
It's crooked. And Max said, well, how did somebody miss that? Nobody missed that. Somebody QA'd it and put a sticker on it, and they said they were proud to sign off on it, number such and such and such and such. And it's clear. I mean, I'm talking about a little crooked. It's like really crooked. Right? That's somebody who said, my job description says I have to put the logo on the back. That 40% is, do I care enough to make it straight?
So I got a couple of stories to take that out to the shop floor. Go ahead to the next slide. So when we talk about high-impact leaders and low-impact leaders, I love this first line right here, because I always say high-impact leaders engage the disengaged. You ever seen that happen? Somebody walks in, or a different leader takes over, or they bring in a consultant. All kinds of things could happen. Somebody gets promoted or moved over, but the same team with a different leader, they become engaged. Have you ever seen that happen? See, a low-impact leader, they disengage the engaged. Have you ever seen that happen? Right the opposite. So when we're talking about that 40%, I got a story I want to share. I was out in Texas. This is when I was doing lean manufacturing consulting. Hadn't really done that since 2012, but between 2005 and 2012 was 11,000 hours of it. So I'm out on a shop floor leading a Kaizen event, and I had been to this plant in Texas every other week. I went there for a little over 4 years, but I was out there every other week. And I had been there a few years at this time, so I had worked with this department, that department, that department. And so I kind of knew everybody, and I built relationships, and I respected people and things like that. Y'all have seen Andy Griffith's show? Most everybody? So there's Andy leaders out there in the world, and there's Barney leaders. Right? That's all you need to know if you know about that, right? So there was a Barney leader over all these supervisors and all these departments. And what I mean by that is he wanted to be involved in everything that happened. He really didn't care what was happening because the higher level leaders had brought me in, but he still wanted me to have to come ask his permission to do anything I was doing. So I went up to him one day, and because I want to build trust with Barney, guess what I would do happily whenever I needed to do something? Absolutely. I want to build trust with him too. He's on the team. When I walk into a building, I'm on the team, and that guy, anybody in the building is on the team. So I'm trying to develop influence with him. So I go up and I say, Mr. Leader, I'm over here with assembly this week, and I need to go over to welding and see if they can weld something up for us to make the job easier for these folks during this lean event. He said, oh, okay, no problem. He said, but I need to get you an interpreter. He said, nobody over there in that department speaks English. I said, oh, okay. I said, do you mind if I just go wait over there for the interpreter? He said, oh, that'll be fine. So I walk over here and I said, hey, Jose, how's it going? Oh, it's going great, Mac. What are you doing this week? Y'all see that 40% coming out? And then other folks come up and start talking, and they dirty and they got greasy hands, and I don't dress like this when I was doing a lean consultant, but I shake their hands, I get grease all over me. I don't care. I can wash them later. I'm patting them on the back, and I tell them what we need, and they happy to do it. And then later, here comes the interpreter, and I say, it's okay, we don't need you. I said, we was able to get it taken care of. Sorry you had to come out here. And we just carried on our business. But you think there's 40% productivity loss potentially in that department when the 2 or 3 levels up leader thinks nobody in this whole department, 20 people, he thinks none of them even speak English? You think he's losing some influence with those folks? And they could all speak English to me. That's the difference in them wanting to do it and not having to do it. I always tell folks, whenever you know someone on your team can do the job, you know they can do it, you know they know how to do it, you know they have time to do it, and they're just not doing it, it's because they don't have to do it. If they had to do it, they'd either be doing it or not working there. So as a leader, when we have someone on our team like that, I got to look in the mirror and say, this person knows how to do it, they have time to do it, I'm not firing them because of it. It means they just don't want to do it. I'm responsible for fixing this relationship. I might be losing 40%. What if I got 3 people like that and I'm losing 40% of each one of them? That's 1.2 people. Just across 3 people. Most organizations have a lot of Barney-type leaders in them, especially the blue-collar organizations, just the way it is. We still love them and hug them, but they're still out there, and we try to grow and develop them. A lot of times they don't want to grow and develop. Does that stuff make sense right there? Oh, I got one more story, Ria.
One more.
I got one more story on that. That same plant, I'm walking across the factory floor one day in the warehouse. Forklift driver pulls up. He says, "Hey, Mac, I just want to let you know, we really like you, but we hate that other consultant." And the other consultant was a 10-year Toyota guy who's like, they get a lot of recognition for lean and all that stuff. Toyota's kind of the benchmark. I said, "How come you didn't like the other guy?" He said, "Oh, they just hired him to come in here and tell us what to do. We didn't like that." I said, "Oh, okay." I said, "What'd they pay me to do?" He said, "I really don't know, Mac." I kind of liked that answer. That was kind of cool. And I said, "Do you want to know?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "This is top secret stuff, man." He said, "Okay." I said, "I'm serious. What I'm about to tell you, you can't go tell this." I said, "Because if you do, it's going to mess up everything we have going." He said, "Okay." I said, "Well, come down. We ain't going to say it loud." He said, "Okay." I said, "You ain't going to believe it. They pay me to get them to listen to you. If they ever figure that out, they're going to fire me and just start listening to you." That's really all I did as a consultant. Every single week, wasn't nothing special about me, but living these principles. And I got a book on leading lean. It's about unleashing the people, though it ain't about the process and the tools, but I call it priming the pump. If I did a 5-day lean event, the first 4 hours, no matter what the lean event was about, first 4 hours Monday was this kind of stuff. Getting their mindset ready to quit blaming me, quit blaming the world, quit blaming each other, and let's get our mindset ready to go. Going slow to go fast, right? And then I would do an hour every other day I call it priming the pump. And we killed it every week after week after week. And then people love the leadership stuff. And that's what they need to get the organization better. Even when people bring us in, the people will be hungry for it, and then we don't ever go back. People overestimate the event like today and underestimate the process, which is every day. This stuff has to drip. To change a culture, to transform yourself in an organization, it's just got to drip nonstop. What time we stop today?
12:15 today, not tomorrow.
PM?
Yes.
Oh, I thought it was AM. We got to speed up.
So our organizational chart reflects the managers, right? It's the titles, the positions, the CEO, the directors, the team leads. But it doesn't reflect leadership.
You ever thought about that?
And we want everyone to think of themselves as leaders. If leadership is influence, right? I want that person, they may not care about having a title or being a boss of somebody. And that's okay. But I want that person to know that leadership is influence. And every single one of us want more influence. Because life gets better when we have more influence. Because more influence leads to more options. If the forklift driver understands that he's working for himself, and the better job he does increases his influence, it increases his options. He's more bought in, he's more engaged, and he's more likely to carry out the job that he knows he can do, that 40%.
The way I get those guys on the front line, but it applies to you as well. It applies to everybody because it's a principle. But it's one of the chapters in the BlueCollar Leadership book. You can flip that too. That first book right there. And we're going to give all of you guys a book. We got some, we didn't have enough for all of you. We just brought a few that we packed. But you can, if you get one of the ones we brought, you can have one of those, or you can email us, and we'll send you one of these four, whichever one you prefer. But in that little blue book, it's the one I wrote. That blue book is How to Lead Yourself Well. It's actually how I got to meet Amir. Amir made a comment on it when I put something on LinkedIn. That's a couple years ago, maybe. And I think I emailed you and said, hey, I'll send you a free book. And you accepted it. And now we've become friends with Amir and his family. He's got an amazing family. But we have a very aligned values. But in that book, it's 30. All these books are 30 chapters, 3 pages each. They're for people that don't like to read, like me.
You like to have read.
This is what I like to do to a book. I like to close it. But every day since 2008, when I discovered my first introduction to leadership was in 2008, and it was the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. A 1-hour audio version, which is nothing but an overview of the 13-hour audio book. But I didn't know all of that then. A friend had loaded my iPod 3 years earlier, and he put a bunch of music on there, but he put that book from his friend's Dad's computer. Said, hey, I put a business book on there. I said, is it any good? He said, I don't know. I ain't never listened to it. He said, my friend's dad said it's good. So that's how I got started on my leadership journey. But I've been reading every day since then. And so there's a chapter in there, and I talk about what Ria was just saying, because I'm trying to get them to understand at any level, but it applies to all of us. If you increase your influence, you think you have more options or less? Who you think that's important to, having more options? Somebody or everybody? Everybody. So that's the kind of stuff I go through with this book, helping them understand why they need to increase their influence. And it's going to help them be a model team member if they'll do this stuff. So everybody wins. It don't matter if you're Barney or Andy. Either one of them would love for their people to start leading themselves well, which is what that book is about. So I ask them, when I'm trying to get them to buy into this stuff, I say, let's say Ria and I are forklift drivers. I pull up, you need some help. You say something, I'm like, no, it ain't my job. They pay me to drive this lift. People do that out there. They say this stuff at all different levels. They say that kind of stuff. But I'm talking to the entry level at this moment in this exercise. So I say, I ain't getting off, it ain't my job, so I'm rude to you. You think everybody watching knows that? What's happening to my word of mouth? Because what I teach them is you working for yourself, because we really are. You may work somewhere, but you're working for yourself. So I want them to know that, and I teach them that before this. So now they know they're working for themselves. So what's happening? Am I getting positive word of mouth or negative? So Ria shows up. She hops off even when you don't need any help. She walks up, pats you on the back. Hey, man, how's it going? How's life today? I'm about to run by the supply cage down there. You need any gloves, any rags, anything I can help you with? What's she doing with her business? What you think word of mouth is about her, positive or negative? And I ask them, no matter who they are sitting in the audience, and I'll ask them, if you were this person's boss or these two people, and now you had a raise to give one of them, which one gets it? Every time or sometime? Every time. I say, now there's a downturn in the economy, and you got to let one of us go. Which one are you going to let go? Every time. So I teach them that in chapter 4. Common sense is never enough. See, what I just taught you was common sense. Everybody agreed because it's common sense. But we use the word wrong. Common sense means we should understand it. Everyone should understand it. Doesn't mean everyone would do it. Often doing things that we understand requires uncommon sense. So that's chapter 4 out of 30 in that book, to help them understand everything you're about to learn in here, common sense. But it ain't common practice. And so that's the kind of stuff, that's what that book is full of. But again, if they've got a Barney leader that hands them that book, and they actually buy into what's in the book, they're going to be the first ones to leave Barney, because they're going to have options. If they start reading every day, they're going to have options like I have today. I won't never work for another Barney. I won't even support a Barney if I know a Barney's hiring me, because I don't have to do that anymore. That makes sense? So right quick, the supervision book is How to Lead Others Well. I wrote that for people in a formal authoritative position. The teamwork book is How to Actually Be a High-Impact Team Player. It's for anybody at any level. It's 30 chapters on how to be responsible, be growth-oriented, be. And then the Kaizen book is How to Lead Teams Well. And I'm really specifically talking about process improvement, but how to unleash the team. But the key to all of it is leading ourselves well. See, when you introduce this type of stuff to your organization, y'all familiar with lean, most of you? You always hear lean's about putting on the waist glasses so everybody can see the waist. When you start talking about this kind of leadership, instead of waist glasses, what you start putting on is character glasses. Because true high-impact leadership development is nothing but character development. How much easier would it be to lead your team or a team, or where you worked? Would it be better if people had better character or worse character? Common sense. But most of the time we don't even train and talk about it and teach about it, none of that stuff.
So one last question that Mac is going to leave you with, and he touched on it earlier, but we've got a couple of books here. You're welcome to take one with you if this resonates with you. If you don't get, we don't have enough for everybody, but if you don't get one today, feel free to shoot me an email, and I'll mail you one, drop you one in the mail. Or if you wanted just a copy of the slides, I know sometimes that's helpful too. Shoot me an email, and we'll...
And also, if you go on our website, those first 2 books on the left, you can download the first 5 chapters right there on the website, and it'll tell you what the other chapters are, so you can kind of see what that's about. We have a podcast the last slide, but you can look up Ria's name or my name, BlueCollar Leadership, 2 different podcasts. Hers is for women in leadership, but mine's BlueCollar Leadership podcast. And actually, right now, I think today I put out part 11 of a 17-part series on the difference between managers and leaders. See, managers, when you see that org chart and it's full of managers, they just come in every day and just stir the pot. It's like Barney's everywhere stirring the pot. Leaders come in and they get people aligned around principles that are in alignment with natural laws and principles, right? They bring that in and they say, this is who we're going to be and where we're going to be. If you want to line up with us, come on. If you don't, we'll see you later because this is who we are and where we're going. But most of the time there's a lot of pot stirring going on. You ever notice that? It's pretty painful.
So last question. Because these people got to eat.
Oh, they got to eat. So I always like to ask, I actually heard John Maxwell's dad say this. He's in his 90s, Melvin Maxwell. But he asked this question. He used to ask John all the time growing up, John Maxwell, his son. He'd say, 5 frogs sitting on a log, 4 decide to jump off. How many are left? 5? How come? Yeah, they decided. A lot of times people say 1. If you said 4 jumped off, no, 4 decided to jump off. Right? I decided to pick up my right foot. It ain't moved yet, though, has it? I have to do something. So if you heard something in this session, if you hear something when you're talking amongst each other, something in a mirror session, something in some other session, I call this leadership truth, and I don't say it to offend you by no means, but you ain't done nothing yet. Right? Sitting in that chair thinking about doing it, we ain't done nothing. We have to go take action. And you want to say the law of diminishing intent right quick?
The law of diminishing intent says the longer we wait to do something we know we should do, the less likely we are to do it. It sounds really good when you're at the conference. It's going to sound a lot less likely on Monday when you go back to work. And by next week, you will have forgotten all about it if you don't take action.
And let me say, when you come to hear a speaker, you read a book, or you listen to an audio, or you're doing a podcast, whatever you're doing, especially when you come to hear a speaker speak, especially if you're voluntold, somebody tells you, go get in this room and listen to somebody. And this is actually in my teamwork book. It's a principle in there about be teachable, one of the chapters. And it's what I'm trying to share with you right now. When you go, look for the gold. Look for the gold. When people are really mining for gold, what do they usually find? What are they usually digging up when they're searching for gold? Dirt. What do they do with it? They dump the dirt and keep looking for the gold. If they find some gold, they dig it in their pocket or do something with it, right? But they don't throw it out. Wherever you go, don't worry about if you don't like the speaker. Don't worry about if you don't like Mac Talks Country, and I can't stand it. If you're going to sit in there, look for some gold. Forget about me and look for the gold. Anywhere you go. Does it make sense? And we'll stay here or out there. If you guys have any questions, we're happy to speak with you. It's been a pleasure to be here with you guys, and y'all got to help us go make this world a better place. And start at home. If you don't want to do it at work because Barney won't let you, start at home and you won't be working for